Yeah, I'm blessed that I've been able to work with Rocky Mountain Jewish Historical Society to keep my work. When I first started giving them my work, I was beginning to lose my sight, and I didn't know if I would have any sight at all to see my photographs. But very fortunate in the last 26 years that my sight, I've lost a great deal of it, but I have enough to see my photographs up close, and that I can still photograph for fun and enjoy it.
Well, I'm pleased to be honored by the Rocky Mountain Jewish Historical Society and the Beck Archives. I have a long history with them because of my brother, Dr. John Livingston, who was one of the founders. So history has been important to me through him, and the history of Jews in Denver relates to me particularly with a number of my family members.
Well, thank you so much for honoring my father. We are very proud of him. He loved taking pictures. He loved the IJN. It really brought a lot of joy to his life, and we're just so happy that you're actually doing this for him.
Although the pivotal role Jews have played in Colorado's political, economic, social, cultural, and religious development has been well documented, few people realize that Jewish photographers have also had a long history in the state. In the early 1850s, Sephardic Jew Solomon Nunes Carveo, born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1815, was a fledgling photographer and little-known American artist. Carveo was said to have studied with the famous early American portrait painter Thomas Sully. Sully captured the images of many prominent early leaders in the United States, such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Quincy Adams. Philadelphia resident Rebecca Gratz, arguably the most well-known and accomplished Jewish woman in early America, was also the subject of one of Sully's most iconic portraits. In addition to eventually becoming a successful painter, Solomon Carveo also became one of the earliest Americans to have mastered the brand new art of photography through the complicated and challenging daguerreotype method. Solomon and his wife, Sarah Miriam Solis, were active members in the Jewish community in Philadelphia and then in Baltimore, where the family later resided before ultimately settling in New York. In 1853, when Carveo accompanied the fifth and most dangerous Fremont expedition to the American West as its official daguerreotypist, Solomon Nunes Carveo also became the first documented Jew to set foot in what later became the state of Colorado. In 1860, Carveo published the diary he kept of the arduous and at times life-threatening 5-month journey as a book titled Incidents of Travel and Adventure in the Far West with Colonel Fremont's Last Expedition. During his travels with the Fremont expedition, under the most trying of weather conditions, including facing blizzards as they plodded over frigid mountains, and at one point Carveo's life was at risk due to near starvation and scurvy. Still, he took photographs almost daily, and as an observant Jew, Carveo tried to keep kosher on the treacherous trail. His heavy equipment and photographic supplies were loaded on the backs of horses and pack mules. Sadly, nearly all of the 300 images were lost in a fire, but some form the basis for several early renderings we have of the early American West. And it was on a wintry day in late November of 1853 in a location known as Big Timbers in what is now southeastern Colorado that Carveo lifted his 10-pound daguerreotype camera onto a tripod to capture an image of 2 Cheyenne Indians. It is probably the oldest existing contemporary photograph of American Indians in the United States taken on their native land. Carveo was only the first of many Jewish photographers in Colorado. But in the 20th and 21st centuries, a number found artistic and commercial success in the state. One of the earliest was Nathan Hausman, who was born in Poland in 1890. He immigrated to the United States and moved to Denver. In June of 1915, he married Esther Solomon at the BMH Synagogue in a ceremony officiated by Rabbi Charles Kavar. Nathan became a successful portrait photographer, and one of his most beautiful works was a composite picture of the 7 lovely Solomon sisters. Hausman had several studios in his career, including in Trinidad, Denver, and Kansas City. In addition to portraits, Hausman, who was also related to the Hayton family, photographed family members in iconic landscapes, such as this one of the Hayton family at Balanced Rock near Colorado Springs in around 1914. Nathan and Esther had 2 daughters, Isabel and Miriam. Nathan's love for his family and his craft often blended. According to family lore, Nathan took a picture of his firstborn, Isabel, every day for the first year of her life. Nathan passed away in 1966. The late beloved Denver photographer Jack Goldman was born in Mannheim, Germany in 1923. At the age of 15, he was arrested by the Nazis and was deported to the notorious Dachau and then Auschwitz concentration camps. Forced on a death march back to Dachau, he nearly died of typhus, but he survived to witness the liberation of the camp by the American Army. As a 22-year-old survivor with a talent for languages, he began working for the U.S. Army in Germany. He later immigrated to New York City and made his way to Denver with a friend. In the late 1940s, Jack enlisted in the U.S. Army and served in Korea. He became an American citizen in 1952, and in the following year married Margot Weiss, and the couple had 4 children. Jack and Margot were the founding members of Congregation Rodef Sholom. Jack studied commercial photography on the GI Bill, and for 35 years he photographed Jewish family events and provided pictures for the Intermountain Jewish News, including a number of holiday covers. He also took photos of celebrities and even the American presidents who appeared on a popular local TV show called On the Spot, hosted by IGN publisher Max Goldberg. Jack also produced images of some of Denver's iconic Jewish sites, such as these photographs of the Sharith Israel Synagogue, nicknamed the 10th Street Shul, now an art gallery located on the Auraria campus. Gerald Mellman was born in 1927, received his law degree from the University of Denver, and conducted a successful law practice for nearly 5 decades.
So my dad actually worked initially with my grandfather and then also my uncle. So the 3 of them had a law practice and had several different buildings downtown that they worked from.
But if law was his profession, from a young age, photography became his avocation.
In college, I did some articles for the Intermountain Jewish News, and so I started taking pictures for the IJN, and later on, I don't know when, what year, I became a sports editor.
A fixture courtside in Denver at sports games ranging from football, baseball, and basketball to boxing and hockey. Mellman captured iconic shots of such leading American sports figures as John Elway, Larry Walker, and Muhammad Ali.
The Bronco games, I have the good fortune of sitting in the press box and taking pictures and meeting various people, meeting various players and coaches from time to time. And
towards the end of my dad's career, last few years, watching Peyton Manning and taking pictures of him were very special for my father.
Jerry, as he was affectionately known, was also active in the Jewish community, serving as a president of B'nai B'rith. He and his wife Genevieve became the parents of 4 children. Their daughter, Barbara Mellman Davis, followed in Gerald's footsteps as an attorney, and son David Mellman and daughters Marty Mellman Friednash and Lisa Mellman are all physicians. Sometimes photography became a stepping stone to another career, as in the case of noted Denver architect Alan Gass. Alan fell in love with photography as a boy, as a student at Denver's Smiley Junior High, then joined the photography club at East High. While a student at Harvard, he was a photographer for the yearbook for his first 3 years, and art and layout editor in his senior year. Alan took many photographs of Denver architecture, which ultimately led to his interest and success in that field as a respected Denver architect. Ronald Wohlauer was born in Colorado and spent most of his life there, apart from his years at Cambridge University and the University of Oregon. Ron grew up in a small town in northeastern Colorado where his father, who had fled Nazi Germany in 1937, practiced medicine. His mother, Ruth Levy Wohlauer, was a member of the Denver Levy family, which had all immigrated from Germany, and his aunt and uncle, Hannah Levy and Jack Levy, later joined by their youngest brother Edward, founded the successful Fashion Bar clothing chain in the 1930s. In 1967, using a 25-cent pamphlet from the Kodak Company, Ron taught himself to print his own photographs, and he became hooked on photography. While studying at the University of Oregon, Ron apprenticed with a renowned photographer, Brett Weston. Ron is best remembered for his sweeping landscapes and portraits, which evoke his wide-ranging view of the world through the subtle use of shadows. Before Ron's untimely passing in 2004, he wrote,
"I love photography and the quirky way it can transform small rooms and hidden places into the magic world of my own creation."
Ron Wohlauer was a legend among Colorado photographers, with a style especially reflected in his majestic black and white landscapes. Wohlauer's last book of photos, Small Rooms and Hidden Places, came out just a few days after he passed away. He was also a gifted teacher who inspired many students to carve out their own paths as photographers.
Ron Wohlauer was the most incredible teacher. It took a while to figure it out, but if he said to you, "Well, I think you might have considered doing it this way," he hated it. Otherwise, he accepted it and was extremely positive, and that was as negative as he got with criticism. He was so supportive for all of his students.
To honor his talent, a memorial show based on his book was mounted in the Denver Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs at the Colorado Photographic Arts Center. A number of his photographs also grace the Wohlauer Room in the University of Denver libraries. Denver Jewish photographer Norm Bloom was a fixture on the Denver scene for decades as what was termed a bread and butter photographer rather than a photojournalist. Norm recorded countless Jewish life cycle events, including weddings, anniversaries, and bar and bat mitzvah celebrations, as well as organizational events in the Jewish community. Born in Denver in 1934, he grew up on the East Side. Norm loved photography from the day he received a camera as a boy, and he was one of the head photographers for the East High School student newspaper. He later went to work at Brightone Camera, located in downtown Denver at 15th and Stout, before starting his own business, Norm Bloom Photography. Norm Bloom was a talented, self-taught photographer with an upbeat personality and infectious sense of humor. Each photo shoot was punctuated by his famous jokes and ever-present smile. Norm was active in many Denver Jewish organizations, including B'nai B'rith and the Denver Jewish War Veterans, and he served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. He passed away in 2006, and his daughters recalled he left a legacy that helped capture the spirit of Denver's Jewish community for generations. Sharon Berkowitz moved to Denver in 1976. A graduate of the University of Colorado at Denver, she combined majors in history and photography. In the late 1990s, she took photographs of Holocaust survivors in Denver, including fellow photographer Jack Goldman. In 1997, she created a photographic exhibit for the City and County of Denver in the rotunda of the City and County building titled "Show Me, I Remember, Denver and the Holocaust," which helped launch her photographic career. In 2016, she transitioned into residential real estate with Sunny Homes and continues as a realtor today. And she gifted much of her photographic equipment to budding photographers. Sharon Berkowitz and her husband Larry are the parents of 2 married daughters and grandparents of 4. Dr. Daniel Teitelbaum was born in New York City and has been engaged in photography since he was a boy. His father taught him the basic principles of photography when Daniel was only 9. He first photographed and worked in the darkroom, in black and white and later color, and then explored virtually every photographic medium and format. He did his own processing and printing for more than 70 years. Beginning in the 2000s, Teitelbaum became involved in digital photography and has also taught in workshops and seminars. He began work in printmaking in about 2005, following a workshop he took at the Anderson Ranch with Dan Weldon, the originator of the solar plate process. Over the years, his preferred camera has been the 35mm Leica, and his particular interest is in street photography. His work has been shown in both local and national shows over the past 25 years, including MoPrint, Denver Month of Photography, and the 25th anniversary of Open Press Retrospective. In addition to his photography, Teitelbaum earned rabbinical ordination from New York's Jewish Theological Seminary in 1960 and received a degree in medicine from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in 1964. His field of practice and clinical work was in toxicology and occupational medicine. Now retired, Dr. Teitelbaum also served as an adjunct professor of occupational environmental health at the Colorado School of Mines and was on the medical school faculty and the School of Public Health faculty at CU beginning in 1967. Neil Yulovich worked as a photojournalist in Asia for the Associated Press and other organizations for decades. He lived in Hong Kong, Thailand, Japan, and China, and traveled throughout the region. He covered the war in Vietnam for the AP from 1970 until his last day in 1975, departing Saigon by helicopter from the roof of the U.S. Embassy. Then he moved to Bangkok, Thailand, where he worked as AP's regional photographer. The dramatic images he captured in Asia won him great acclaim. And in 1977, Yulovich won the Pulitzer Prize for spot news photography for his pictures of political upheaval in Bangkok. Yulovich returned to the United States in 1990. He retired from the AP in 2002 and lives in Thornton, Colorado, and freelances in the Mountain States. Denverite Ed Bernstein became nationally known for his portraits of leading American contemporary Orthodox Jewish rabbis. But in earlier decades, he was one of the first in the state to take aerial photographs. Bernstein was a third-generation Denverite and grew up on Denver's west side in the 1950s. He worked as a professional photographer for over 60 years and freelanced for the Intermountain Jewish News for nearly 4 decades. Bernstein was one of the official team photographers who recorded the building of the Broncos Stadium, and for many years served as the official photographer for the Keystone Ski Resort. In addition, he photographed many American political leaders when they visited Denver. For decades, Bernstein also worked as a bread and butter photographer, recording numerous Jewish community and life cycle events. But in the 1970s, he found his real calling. Utilizing his reliable Canon SLR camera, he began to capture iconic portraits of leading contemporary Orthodox Jewish scholars and religious leaders across America. And before long, those pictures appeared on the walls of Jewish homes and graced book covers in the United States and around the world. Barbara Livingston Carpenter loved photography as far back as she can remember. When she was in grade school, the local drugstore held a contest for children. The first prize was a bicycle, and the second prize was a Brownie Hawkeye camera.
The winner was based on how many points they got, and those points were based on how much people spent in the store. Well, I knew that my parents couldn't do this, so I stood outside of the store for days and on weekends as much as I could. And as people came out, assuming they didn't have children with them, I asked them for their points. Well, I won the first prize, which was the bicycle, and I did not want it. And the young man who won the second prize, which was a Brownie Hawkeye camera, didn't want that either. So I gave him the bicycle and he gave me the camera. The other thing that happened that probably shaped my life, photography-wise, was that my father took me to the Family of Man exhibit in New York when I think I was about 13, and it just blew me away. I knew that that was something that I wanted to do.
Once her 2 daughters, Stacy and Kendra, were in junior high, Carpenter decided to pursue formal photographic training at the Community College of Denver. And she was fortunate to study under Ron Woolhour and Ray Whiting. As a student, she learned shooting techniques, film development and printing, both color and black and white, and portfolio presentation. Initially, her primary interest was black and white landscape photography, but her focus soon turned to abstract photography.
What I'm trying to capture is abstraction and color. I want people to be able to look at it and appreciate it for what it is, and the subject, the original subject, absolutely doesn't matter. I don't name my images because I do not want people to see in the way that I saw. I want them to be able to respond to it on their own with their own experiences.
During her years as a photographer, her images have been included in many juried shows, including the Cherry Creek Arts Festival, Curtis Arts and Humanities Center, Steamboat Springs Art Depot, the Rocky Mountain Juried Photography Exhibition in Colorado Springs, and Art Zone at the Jewish Community Center. Her work has also been shown at Grant Gallery, Hobart Gallery, the Museum of Thermopolis, Wyoming, Loveland Museum, and the Lincoln Center Gallery in Fort Collins. In addition, Barbara Carpenter has taught abstraction, color printing, and color theory at Working with Artists and the Denver Darkroom. She's taught photographic workshops for adults, and she has been a member of Core Gallery and Spark Gallery, where she continues to this day. Robert Weinberg was born in Denver to Colorado Jewish natives David and Faye Weinberg. His passion for photography began in 1966, first as a VISTA volunteer.
We first started working on the Uinta Ute Indian Reservation, and then when I was finally placed, I worked in East St. Louis, Illinois, which is across the Mississippi River from St. Louis. It's mainly a black community, and I was able to purchase a Canon FX camera, a single lens reflex, but I had to get one of the volunteers to co-sign because I was just 19 years old then, and I had to be 21 years to buy a camera. But after purchasing this camera, I started photographing everybody that I was working with, every place we went to. It just started to create a passion.
After working in Boston, he returned to Colorado, and Robert graduated from the Colorado Mountain College in 1975 with an associate degree in commercial photography and launched his lifelong career. He worked for a variety of retail photo businesses in the 1970s and 1980s and started his own photography business in the mid-1980s. Weinberg became a photojournalist and specialized in portrait photography as well as fine art landscapes and abstracts. Before long, he recalls that he realized that he had to be serious about photography and started to take pictures of everyone. During his storied career, he created dramatic picture portraits of people from all walks of life. And for decades, he also worked for the Allied Jewish Federation and the Intermountain Jewish News, where he recorded the stories of Jewish individuals, organizations, and events.
For 20 years, I worked in the Jewish community, and to get to know everyone, it was a real delight. I mean, it was also a lot of my business, but to be a part of the Jewish community was very meaningful to me.
Unfortunately, in the mid-1990s, Robert started losing his sight, and by 1998, he was legally blind. Yet he continues with photography to this day, using a preset camera. Several organizations, including the Colorado Center for the Blind, helped him to learn to live independently, even with his severe visual impairments. After formally closing his photography business in 2003, he was hired to work at the Base Supply Center at Buckley Air Force Base through Envision, a nonprofit agency aimed at helping the blind community gain independence through knowledge and skill. In 2023, 8 of his iconic photographs were shown at History Colorado in an exhibit titled The World of Denver, the photography of Robert Weinberg. Through his photographic legacy, Weinberg proudly observes that he has captured time.
I just love the process of being able to photograph, and I never realized how important it was going to be in time that I will photograph everything that's gone on, and it will go into archive and history.
The world we live in today is a far cry from the era in which Solomon Nunes Carveo took his pioneering daguerreotype photographs in the Colorado wilderness. A time when it sometimes took almost an entire day to set up for just one shot. Yet today, a new cadre of innovative, talented Colorado Jewish photographers are still making their mark. For well over a century, Jewish photographers have used their talents to capture the lives of Americans from all walks of life, as well as the beauty of the Western American landscape for posterity. Through the skillful use of their lenses, they have both made and recorded history.